Okay, my friends, home of the shocker du jour, Mudfossil University. I am your host, Roger, and I know everybody's thinking about coral. Well, not everybody, but there are people talking about coral. What's going on with the coral? Why are we having these coral die-offs? What's coral all about anyway? How does it feed itself? How does it attach? What are the different types of corals? Well, I have a piece of coral right here. And this, my friends, will be a shocker du jour. And I have another piece of coral that's in the microscope. And we're going to be looking at these things right now. Okay, my excellent friends, another shocker du jour. They just keep coming. Most people would say coral, which this is coral, is, I guess they would say it grows from underwater plant life, basically. These ferns and whatever they call them. Well, this particular piece of coral, I say, is not grown from anything. It grew things. Things grew in these little tiny holes. I'm going to show you this in some extreme detail shortly. And I'm going to tell you what I think this is in a second when I home in on what it is on the screen. Now you say it's coral. I say yes, you're right, it's coral. But what was it before it became this white, fibery looking stuff? I think I can make a good case that it is a heart. You know, I almost don't know how to start to present this because it's so bizarre. But this is a heart, and above it is the plumbing. And that just pops right off. It happens to virtually all hearts. When they decay, the top just disassembles. And you end up with these valves and the muscles around the bottom. Because the heart is almost entirely muscle, a few valves, and then some plumbing on top. These holes right here, I don't know if you can see those well or not. I'm going to bring it in closer, and I'm going to show you the details here that show that this is a heart. And it's coral, but it is a heart. All right, let's just start with this. How do these coral reefs establish themselves? They say that these coral species, including the important reef builders, they build it themselves. Maybe. But there are other possibilities that I'm going to show you. This coral right here. This wasn't built. This was alive at one time, and I will show you the evidence to support the statements I am making. Alright, so the calcium carbonate to form a hardened skeleton. Well, let's look into that. Okay, my friends. Again, it's crazy. This is what a heart looks like. Along this seam right here, that pops right off. And you get right down to the valves. And the reason is because the red and the blue blood oppose each other. And it literally just pops right off. You find virtually every time you find a heart, it's broken off here. Just like this one is. And you say, oh no, Roger, that's a piece of coral. I said, well, maybe it is. But it is also a heart. And there's the valves. Take your time and look at it. You see it? 1, 2, 3, 4 spots right there. Now, this thing died, and the heart came out of the body because of the boiling waters and ended up laying like this. This is what that heart was like when it was dead, laying in the ocean or wherever it was. Now, if it happened to be in the ocean, things will eat what's inside this tissue, and that tissue will be loaded with edible stuff. And they will eat it and live off of this, and I don't know what they do after that. They grow for, but a lot of them are filter feeders, yes. They might just use this as an anchor. I have no problem with that. And then their little leaves can do that. They call it foliar feeding. They get stuff out of the ocean waters as it sloshes by them. So this could be an anchor, or it could be a source of food. I'm going to show you this in so much detail. I mean, there's still blood in here. I'm not kidding you. Watch. All right, this is extreme. These holes right here. You see these holes? 1, 2, 3, and then that little bitty one over there. The same as these. That's the top of the heart. Now this thing died and laid like this in the ocean, and then ocean creatures started to eat away at the heart. And they ate everything out of this heart until there was nothing left but the straps of muscle. Not muscle, actually, the straps of connective tissue. That's all connective tissue. And you see the strap? Let me show you something. This is beyond bizarre. That right there is the strap. This is where there's a chamber in here. And there's another chamber up here. Same thing. This is exactly identical. And this is the strap that runs across, and they pull and squirt and squirt. That's your hearts are one big long strap of muscle, and they just sort of twist like this, I believe, basically. And these are the chambers at the top, the valves, and that is the actual strap of muscle there. Now we're going to look at this in a microscope and look at, because there's still blood in here. There's still blood in the aorta. All right, check this out now. This is where the valves are. This is the heart that I say, this is the coral one that I say is a heart. It's in the microscope. And here's what it looks like in a microscope where the aorta is. There's still blood there. Now it's crystallized. More or less. It's turned into crystal. Red blood does not normally do this. This is kind of unusual, I gotta be honest with you, because the red blood normally washes right away and goes away quickly. It's very, very fluidy when it gets into water. It loves water. Now the black blood is different. Usually that's the one that doesn't go away and stays black. I have to look around for some of that. And this is one of those bands of muscle, really. Originally it was a band of muscle. And all of the red fibery, red gooey stuff is gone. And all that's left is the connective tissue. And this was an anchor somewhere in there that anchored. And this is at the other end of the heart. But that's that strap. And that must be an anchor at the very bottom of the heart. And all of this white stuff was what I'll just show you in a connective tissue in a heart. Remember, if all of that, let me see if I can turn the lights on. All right, you see it's just all fabric. But originally that was saturated with gooey stuff that made the heart pull like this, sarcomeres. All right, this is basically that. This is cardiac muscle. And the white stuff is the connective tissue. You have to have the red stuff to do the pulling, to sarcoplasmic reticulum and so forth does the pulling, and the sarcomeres. But you have to have connective tissue because they don't have any structural integrity. They're just sort of gooey. But they have the ability to pull in and out like that. And that's what twists your heart. And these are the valves at the top. And this is what it is. Now, this one, I have another lung in the microscope right now. And this one, I think, is basically loaded with gold. And there it is right there. All the sparkly little spots, I believe most of those are actually gold. Now, when you look at it closely, you can see this thing has a band in it as well. And it also has the white stuff that all of the other stuff got attracted to. You see there's a lot of blood here. There's a lot of blood in this. And there's a lot of gold, and there's some green here and there, which is copper, and a lot of white. If you look around, you can find a lot of the white, but mostly it's been overtaken by the heavy minerals. This is heavy. And it has the straps, it has the, whoops, hold on a second. Went to sleep. I think you can see that pretty good. I mean, this band right here is the band that runs up. That's the edge of the band right there, and it runs right over the top, just like the other one did. There's a lot of white, which is the connective tissue. But this was in different chemistry, quite obviously. Nothing ate this. What happened to this one is its transition metals, this looks to me like this was one of the end soaking points of this body. And the blood transferred through there and accumulated all the metals and so forth in this. Because these are metals. I'm pretty sure it's gold. It's very heavy. It's 3 times heavier than the coral, but the coral's very light, so. You see all the... Now, let's look at the valves. All right, this is one of the valves right here. And it's a hole. Now, you can see some green, and of course, you see a lot of the colors of blood. There's just white stuff all the way around. There's a lot of it here because in a valve, you're going to have a lot of structural support. And then it goes down through here, down into the interior of the heart. But out here, you can see, if you look, you can see it's rounded. You see that? Take a second and just focus in what you do see. What are these curvy things? And do they recreate over here? Yes, they do. This is a valve. In my opinion, well, I'm almost certain that's a valve. And this is a heart. And these are the colors of blood. Blood has a lot of colors in it. It has all the transition metals and iron and all kinds of stuff. All right, that's, I'm going to bring the light up a little bit. I believe these are flakes of gold, but again, I'm not positive. There's a ton of them. They're all over the place. And they're embedded in this white stuff. And they're this thing's heavy, very heavy. Every one of these little holes is where there was blood passing through. Now some of this looks like pyrite or something else. It could all be pyrite, I don't know. But it's kind of interesting to look at. That's another one of the cavities right there. I think I'm going to go with gold. In some areas, I don't know. It's got a lot of, I believe, a lot of transition metals. Because a lot of blood flowed through here. Okay, my friends, I noticed that I talk about lungs. I say in this lung. Well, we're dealing with hearts today. I do a lot with the lungs, but this little band here is a broken set of sarcomeres. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like really close up. This is what happens in the heart when you get a heart attack. These blocks are called sarcomeres. This is actually a human heart that has been damaged. It's torn. But it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be just like this everywhere. And they go like this. The gooey red stuff pulls them in and out, and the white and the stripy little white spots in between are the connective tissue. So it pulls in or lets go, pulls in or lets go. That's how sarcomeres work. And that's what sarcomeres are supposed to look like when they are correct. When they are damaged, they are here, just as I showed you a moment ago. All right, there's basically ripped. Now, where have I seen these before? Well, guess what? They came off of Asteroid Bennu right here. Here's what the sarcomeres are in the muscle that they pulled out of Bennu. You see this? These are muscle fibers. See how tangled up they are? They run around and they run through that whole heart thing that I showed you. Those are the muscle fibers. And in those fibers are these little sarcomeres. So coming out this way is going to be sarcomere, 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 and it just keeps going around. Now, if it gets damaged, they get ripped open, as I just showed you a moment ago. Now, outside of that, they also found a membrane, which is the outer layer. Every organ has one. It's the outer layer of the heart, which was Bennu. They went through and picked up this membrane and then went right down and picked up some muscle. It's just unbelievable. All right, this is where the details matter. You see this? This is tendon. You see these little blocks? Block, 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 block. You see, this is what tendon looks like here. Well, why does it have all these different colors? Because collagen has 28 different types of collagen. I think it's 28. There's a whole ton of them. Some of them are you can just barely bend them. Some of them they just bend like that. Some of them they stretch you this way. Some of them you can't stretch. And they package them together and make a tendon that gives you the ability to do all kinds of stuff in that same bundle. It's just stunning how incredible the human body or all biology is. Just absolutely staggeringly crazy. Now, as you know, I say everything there is made out of biology, even the things that are in space. And I show that by the asteroid Bennu. They know that that's 100% biological. They just can't absorb the reality of it. You see these here? These are tendons. Remember all the little blocks like this, and they come up, and they do come up in these rectangular, sometimes they're square, sometimes rectangular. It depends on where they are in the body. Like this here. Where is it? These are the kind of tendons. They just washed off. These are right down to the smaller, very small fibers. But then they get, well, here, hold on. This is how tendons work. You come from a big rope, it comes in this bundle's in there, and then in this bundle there's a zillion little bundles, and in every one of these bundles there's a zillion other bundles, and in every one of these there's a ton of these, and then you get down to the last little bits and pieces, and you're down into where they actually attach the whole assembly. If that makes sense, and I think it did, I hope. And to look at them, you can see them this way. Here's what they look like. Now, if they're the bigger ones, you get into this. But they're all blocky like that. That's why they break off so smooth. People say, oh, that's, I don't know what they think anymore. I can't imagine what people think anymore. I just can't imagine it. Because they just can't, they haven't done the work. They don't understand what a tendon is made out of. And these tendons don't require any blood to speak of, almost none. They're like rubber bands, that type of thing. Some are heavy duty, some this or that. Anyway, so they turn into basalts and limestone, granite, the real tough stuff. It depends on where they were when they died and in what condition the solution they were in was. What was it made out of? Because that's going to invade. It's called nucleophilic invasion and substitution. It invades and it substitutes what was there. Because it's coming in with all these ionic little particles. They have all little charges on them. They're looking for somebody to bond with. And they bond with whoever is really comfortable with them. Done. And that's usually a transition metal. Well, mostly often. Because they have a whole batch. Well, hold on a second. All right, you see this? These are all floating around in your bloodstream. You have to have these certain metals in certain quantities to carry with these charges and to work back and forth to break down things, to carry things around. You see what this is? Transition metals form colored compounds and complexes. The colors vary depending upon the charge at +3, +2 on the metal ion. So you have the little piece of metal, and then you have a charge, and then these little groups called ligands attached to the metal ions. They drag them around through your body, and where somebody else has more affinity to grab a hold of that, they take it. So these are the deliverers. These deliver things in your body. But when you die, they look for a place to attach to. Usually they're very diffuse. There's very few of them, and they float around along with all the other body parts and things that are around. So they're not confined, a really heavy-duty piece of blood. However, sometimes all of that blood, hold on, I have something here. All of that blood will stay right in the same area, and it will create mud fossils that are virtually identical to what they were when they were alive. I had one laying around here I was going to show you, but let me show you what an opal heart looks like. Hold on. All right, this is a human heart that's being autopsied. It had a regulator in there or something. Now this is what mud fossils can turn like. They can become exactly what they were like when they were alive. when this first came out of the ground, it was blood red. I mean, actually, if I put a little water on it, normally they'll come back to being pretty close to what they were when they were in the ground. You see how red that is now? See the redness? So it depends if it was encapsulated in transition metals. That's the key, because they'll find themselves working with the same body parts they had before. Just like, that's a heart. Now look and see the heartstrings and everything. All right, the valves were up, well, actually the valves are up here, the heartstrings primarily are down here, and that's a heart. Now, this also is a heart, and this is an opal heart. Now that's the blood, and this the body. This was laying like that. I almost guarantee you, because all of these are transition metals, all those different colors I showed you before, the transition metals. They're heavier than the plasma. The plasma would have drifted up to the top, and the transition metals would have settled at the bottom. Now let's look at some other things. You see all of these little strange looking things? I think a lot of these are from the heart muscle, because it wraps everywhere. Now I don't know how they cut this, but I can tell you this is the chamber, one of the chambers of the heart, and all of these transition metals have found other molecules in other biology that will work with them. So the blue looks for this, which is the ventricle walls. And the brown here is some of the tubing, some of the plumbing. I don't know really what I'm actually looking at, to be perfectly honest with you, but it is a heart, of that I'm certain. Now whether these were the valves or not, I don't know. I've looked at it and finally gave up. But there's all kinds of things going on here. Whatever it is, I don't know, but I do know that the transition metals that have an affinity to bond with that particular substance, which is different than the rest of the heart. The walls, like here and around the edges and around this and that, they're all different substances. They're all different. It's not just one big glob of biology. It's all different types of biology working with each other, pulling and stretching, and it's just phenomenal, the interaction with biology. It's stunning. It really is. And don't forget, this came off of Bennu, which is an asteroid in space, and I say it's a heart, and it's gigantic. Here's the membranes. There's the muscle, cord muscle, which would have kept coming along, except it got cut this way. And these are the sarcomeres that are inside these. And this is what cardiac muscle looks like right here. It all comes out, like it did. And these are all the sarcomeres, which it has. Cardiac muscle. And this is the stuff. And they found the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is the glue. They call it a gum. And I believe that's primarily what causes the contractions, is the sarcoplasmic reticulum. And they found that just the other day. It's been here 2.5 years. It's a heart. It's a heart. It's a heart. And so is Psyche. They're headed out there right now. You see this one? This is Psyche. Same thing. It's the same as what I've been showing you here with these hearts here. I know what they are. There's no question what they are. And there's no question what this is. And they have gone, they're going there now. They're headed up to this one right now, Psyche. There's tubes coming out of there. There's another tube coming out of here. These aren't craters. Some of them might be, but not many. These are valves. This is the tendon that locks in the muscle You need something to anchor. This is the anchor. These are the colors of blood, black, yellow, and red. And these are the valves. And they're headed right there right now because they know there's a lot of metals. Blood has the metals in them. They're showing this. If they could take this and smelt it, you'd have this, all metals. The iron meteorites, when they come through space, they're hearts and lungs primarily, which have almost 100% metal. And they still have blood inside of them, even though, well, hold on. All right, there it is right here. There's an iron meteorite. Well, not iron. It's a metal meteorite. All these different types of crystal are different types of metals. Basically, there's a zillion metals. And there it is right there. That's the artery, which is the red. What's that doing inside of an iron meteorite or a metal meteorite? And what's this one doing there? That's the black. That's the vein. Artery and vein. Now, what this is, not exactly sure. There's a number of possibilities here. It's something that was just saturated with blood. Let's just go with that, because I really don't know. I really don't know. You can see that there's blood sort of pushing out there, and there's blood pushing out there. And this is probably pretty well black on the other side. I have one here similar to that. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it. You know, that actually could be a lung, but it would have been extremely smelted because it's very homogeneous on the inside. This is a lung, and it's a little, you know, I guess you'd call it an iron meteorite. It's a tiny little meteorite. Now, this was a lung, and that I can show you and prove. And there is still literally blood in here. When they come through and they're small enough, they don't cook like this. That's smelted. There's still blood in it, but not like this one. This one has real raw red blood. You see all those holes? Lungs have a zillion what they call alveoli. And when it started to come through, it heated up the surface, and they exploded. Out. All right, now, and it's magnetic, which means, you know, it attracts magnets. So there's a lot of iron in this, and that's exactly what there is in blood, is iron, and that's why they call them iron meteorites. It's not iron; it's metal. All right, don't forget this now. These are all of the genetic codes that there are in a human body. All of them. Protein synthesis, molecular DNA, RNA molecules, energy production, all of this is found in the samples. And I showed you they are biologically, anatomically exact for heart tissue. There's the heart bundles, the little cords I showed you. They're all like tangly looking when they come, but they come straight around it. Those are the things that do your heart. And inside of, or actually on, as they go out, they are in these sarcomeres. That's what they found when they brought it back. And it's, as I just showed you, it has every biological signature, 100%. Not one thing is missing. Nothing is missing, and it has the valves and everything. I mean, it's absolute certainty that it's a heart, and they can't deal with that. Now, they probably also can't deal with this. This is a lung. I'm going to show you this in the microscope. I'm going to put a little water on it because the water brings out the colors. But as I showed you before, it's magnetic. Or it attracts magnets. There's a lot of iron in here. All right, so let's see what we got. Okay, I want you to take a good long look at this. These are both lungs. Hold on one second. All right, here's the deal. Here's the lung I'm saying came through space and is now magnetic, wherever the magnetism, here they are. You know, it's iron. It's got a lot of iron. Now, all of these holes are where they blew out as the blood boiled. Now, I'm going to show you this in a microscope, and we'll look at it carefully. But there's going to be places on here that didn't get scalded. For some reason, it must have come in, and this seems to have been hit kind of hard because it boiled up there. Now, down here is not too bad. I'm going to show you what the surface of the texture of this is identical to that. All right, you see what we're looking at here? You see that? If this got cooked up, it would cook off a lot of that white stuff. There might be some left, and that's what we got here. This cooked up, and most of the white stuff is burnt off, but we're going to see some, and we're going to see it right now in the microscope. All right, this is what's called pleura, and it's a stretchable fabric. Now, right underneath this is all these little holes, which is the alveoli. So this coats the lung. This is a lung that's stripped. I didn't do this. This just came out of the ground like this. Now, if you look at close, you can see these little circles. That's these right here, these alveoli. Now, this was in the ground like this. And this was still in the mud. This is what came out of here from some of these little alveoli. And here's the latch in the back of this lung. They all have a latch. You see the latches here? That's the latch. They all have that. These are blood. They're blood. They came out as blood. It's blood. Now, that's the lung here. And again, there is no coating whatsoever on this particular lung. For some reason, it's stripped and was filled with silicates. This is just like came out of the box. You could almost use that for a transplant. And that's this one right here. Now, this died with the guy's body attached. And I can tell that because of where the heart was here. That's the curve of the aortic arch. The heart would have been right there. A left human lung, that's how it works. And this is the where it's like separated the fabric. Okay, and that's the latch. Now here's, and again, you see how flat that is? That's because of the flood. They all died in the Great Flood, the stuff I had. Virtually all of it, I think all of it did. You see that one? See how flat that is? Now wait, this is a mind bender. Total mind bender. It died like that. Well, what is this? It's a lung. And guess what? This is very, very thick. This fabric is very, very, very thick, this pleura. It has to do this 24 hours a day, sometimes really like this when you're running and so forth. It's just started to peel off, you see? The fabric is ripped off this way. This is the lung itself. This is this stuff. This is this. And this is moved over, it's gushed over. It's very thick, the pleura. And it's again flat as a pancake because it died in the Great Flood. I have things here that are just, I can't even believe them, hardly myself. Now this is another lung. This is obviously, to my way of thinking, not from a human, but it has an extreme amount of value to it in my world. That is where the air would have gone through. And that, my friends, is the latch right there. You see that? That's totally different than the rest of this lung. The rest of the lung is alveoli. All of those are alveoli. This is stripped too. This is just nothing more than those. However, the latch is the one thing they all have, and even my one coming out of space. In the microscope, I will show you that latch. And modern medicine does not know about that latch. I'm not kidding you. And there's two little lines in there. You see those two little lines? Those are fluid. Fluids run between the fascia to the next organ that they attach to. There's two little spots. And I even have it on my other one here, wherever that happens to be. This one here. That's the latch on this one. You see, it's a different style because it attaches meat to a shoulder or something. But at the very tip of this, like the very tip of this latch, there's going to be two little tiny holes. And that's what lets the fluids run from this layer, which is the fascia layer, to the next fascia that coats whatever it coats. This one, all of that stuff is gone, but you can still see the two little lines there. We'll look at these things in a microscope shortly. All right, so this is the fabric. This is the fabric that coats things that have to expand and do this. All right, now, this is what it looks like when it burns up most of it. You see that? Some of these fibers are still pretty good. When it comes through, it cooked it pretty good. And it turned it into metal. So smelting, I think you got to go 2200 degrees, 2500, something like that. So it got real hot, but just the surface. It came through so quick, and it's so small that it didn't go into complete meltdown. And this is the pleura. And these blew out. They exploded out because they had wet fluids in them. This thing still has blood in it, I guarantee you. All right, I'm going to do this sort of jiggle it by hand because there's no good way to stabilize it. But this is where I say the blood blew out. And I've done catalase tests on this, and there is a ton of catalase in here, which is the signature of biology. All right, and this is some of that pleura that didn't burn off. Some of it burned completely off. But some places like there, it's not burnt off at all. Well, I mean, it is, but not terribly. Hold on. You see? But all of these have boiled out. All of these were boiled out as it came through and they popped. You see the artery there? I mean the red blood. I hope you don't get seasick. It's riddled with holes because it's a lung. A lung is a lung is a lung. I think there was a statement about that. There's all red blood and it tore it up pretty good. Now, that latch, remember I talked about that latch? I am going to show it to you right now. Okay, I said I could show you that latch, and that is the latch right here. Now, I'm going to put a little water on it, and we'll take a little closer look at the latch. Now, I've shown this many times, and this is the lung, I claim, came through space. It is now partially, it attracts magnets, just like iron meteorites do. I have shown the alveoli. I have shown the latch. It did extremely powerful catalase test. And it looks like there's still red blood in there. Now I put a taste of water on there. if this is like the rest of the, well, I know it's the latch. Of that, there is no question. Let me just dry it up just a smidge. That's the latch. Is this one of the spots where the fluids ran? I'm not sure, but I'm 100% certain that is the latch. It's right on the corner of the lung where they all are. And I'm going to come right down on top of that and see if we can make any more detail, because that's the spots. There'd be 2 spots there. Let me come down and take a look. Okay, this is amazing. I believe these are the 2 spots. That one there and this one right here. They're 2 different colors. They're exactly in the positions that they should be for the tip of the latch to transfer to the next body part. Now, as you can see, you can almost see the tubes coming down. That I'm going to make a claim that is the fluid spots that transferred in this lung from space. All right, this is the absolute best example I have of these 2 spots. This is the tip of the piece of meat. And I'll show you, I'll hold it up in a second, but this spot and this spot. Now, you see this feeding into it? And this one here, the white feeding into it. Let me turn up the light just a smidge. You see what I'm talking about? It's feeding into that. And this one's feeding into that. These are the lymph ducts, I believe, inside the fascia, which is inside the fluid-filled highway. And these conduct from here over into the next, wherever it's attached to the next bit of fascia. That's where the fluids are. You see the difference in color too. It's almost like veins and arteries. I don't know. I just don't know what to think exactly right now. And I've talked to anatomists. They say this is nothing. They have no idea about this. But this certainly is a conduction area for fluids from one to the next. That thing is, here it is in the, well, hold on. Here's what we were just looking at. Right there, the tip of that whole thing. The 2 little spots at the end is where all the fascia comes together, and all these fluids fill together, because these fluids protect. They have enzymes in them. This is important. I think this is being overlooked. This is the shocker du jour from long ago. There's that tube. There's the other tube. This is that latch in a bald lung from some other creature than us, but they have the same thing. They have these fluid-filled tubes, and this thing would have been a fluid-filled housing. You see how it's broken here and broken here? But this latch is totally different than anything else on this lung, and it does have those fluid-filled highways. This is almost undeniable at this point. All right, what we were looking at is this lung right here. Now, this is going to be the area where the air comes in. And then there would have been pleura all around this whole thing, but now it's gone. It's like this one here. Only this one took on all different little transition. Well, you know what? Let me get it wet and we'll put it back in the microscope and we'll do some scoping around. But this is what I'm really interested in. You could see the tubes. You could see the tubes in this one. I'm sure I could find tubes in all the rest of them too. I think those are the tubes right there for this one. They're all lungs. Well, every body part. This is a piece of meat, and you saw the little tubes there. Wherever fascia leaves one area and bundles up like this, and then connects to another organ or something, it has to let those fluids flow, and they flow above the rest of the body fluids. They're the most out. It's called a fluid-filled highway. They never even knew it existed before. I'm not kidding you. This is recent stuff, and it's not being understood well at all by doctors. This fluid-filled highway that these two little tubes service is where all your enzymes are, all your healthy body bacteria, that's your microbiome, basically. That's your lymph system. That's what gets rid of the garbage in your body. That's very important. Now, anyway, let's go into this. I'll soak it down a little bit, and I'll show you what happened here. Instead of completely filling with total silicates, this, I think I got some ideas how that happened, but this is it's not that unusual, but they're all unusual. It depends on how they died, where they died, what chemistry was in the water. There's nothing but silicates, it looks like. All right, they suck up the water pretty quick, but you see all those little tiny balls? Those are alveoli. All right, we know about the latch. That's totally separate than all the rest. You can see it's a torn up edge around it if you look real careful. And all of these are alveoli. The pleura that was wrapped around it is gone. And this is where the air would have entered. All right, this is the kind of surface that you have on this lung. It's all kinds of stuff. Let me just do a free-handed. You see all these things? These are all alveoli, and they have attached to whatever was close to them. So this must have, I don't know, there's a lot of things you have to think about. What caused the preservation process and so on. But that's how crystals get formed like that. All right, now in a certain condition, they would all be like this. But here, there was just some here, some there, all different colors and shapes and sizes. And the only thing certain about this is the latch. Of that, we have no doubt, and we can see the two tubes running down to that tip. And all of this, there would have been pleura attached up to the top of that, and it's just all ripped away. All of these are like little crystals, and they form because of transition metals that are in blood, and lungs and hearts are saturated with blood. This one still freaks me out that these tubes are still here. It's amazing. Okay, I know I've been mixing up lungs and hearts. I've been working with both of them at the same time, but this is a lung, and it's still loaded with blood. However, most of the alveoli have been evacuated. You see the holes? This is where the alveoli used to be. And there's some that still have a lot of blood. And this is, quite obviously a lung. And it's got this big cavity here. is the main input. You see the holes, all these holes filtering throughout the whole thing, see? And these are the colors of blood. So, look at that. So, I know, like I say, I think a couple times I said, I got another lung in there, or I got another heart in there, or whatever I said. Sometimes I'm wrong. I get confused easily now. Isn't that something? And that lung just has been basically boiled out. You see it? That's that lung I was just showing you. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Mud fossils change the world. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it up here, but I think I've shown you all this stuff. Tendons have all these little breaks in them, and I say the entire world is nothing but biology, and this is Giant's Causeway, and it has the identical same breaks in them, and the identical same fibers. The Earth is created by giant creatures. There were giants in the Earth in those days, and then after that there was more giants. These giants are the Earth. Look at this truck. This is tendon or something. Well, it's muscle and tendon, connective tissue, and this is not unusual. The Earth is like this. It just is like this. There's not much you can do about it. It was huge creatures. That's a membrane. That's the top and that's the bottom of the membrane. Over 6 feet thick. And these little ridges around the plates here create what they call a tight junction. When they were alive, there's a mucus membrane. There was a slurp all over there. And it was in between all these. These are supposed to be here. These are protein channels. And then there's some other little things in here. But that's a membrane. That's what a membrane is. See? Right there. It's a membrane. And these are protein channels. They allow things to come in and go out. A membrane coats everything in your body. However, things have to get in and things have to get out. It's just how it works. So they have to know what's allowed in and what's not allowed in. It's a very, very sophisticated device, membrane. It's considered now just sort of something that coats around the organs and stuff. Well, there's a little more to it than that. And there is so many layers. Look, this is also biology. I don't care what anybody says. That's biology. And there's so many layers like this here. In biology, they never knew, and they still don't know. Because there's thousands, literally thousands of layers of tissue in there. You can't even see. It looks like, well, maybe 50 or so. No, thousands. Believe me, I've looked into this, because every one of these layers is not one layer. There may be 500 layers in that one layer. We're built in little tiny lines. Stratified. It's not just some lava flow. They all throw everything into the lava category. Well, they're not all lava, my friends. Okay, last statement of the day is Bennu is a heart. They have the sample, came back to Earth. Every detail is heart. Anatomy is heart. The look of it is heart. The membrane is heart. The cord bundles is heart. The sarcomeres are heart. The sarcoplasmic reticulum, the gum they just discovered, is from the heart. the sugars, all that stuff. All of that, everything here is exactly what you would expect if you punch down through a membrane, which everything has a membrane, so they had to go through the membrane. That's the phosphate surprise, this layer of membrane. Then they went down and grabbed this muscle. They came back with it. Now, and then they had a bunch of little pieces. This little piece right here is the sarcomeres. These are very tiny little pieces. These are the bundles. And this is precisely what you would expect. And there it is. And there's more bundles down here. It's not just a bundle here. You see over here? There was a membrane. There's membranes on everything. And that's where the phosphates are, because it's a phospholipid membrane. And then under that, you get into the red muscle. And nobody's disagreeing with this. They just can't accept what they found. And Psyche, the same thing. It's the same. The structure of it's identical. You see the valves, same thing as Bennu. So I'm going to leave it with that. And Bennu costs us a lot of money. I think we should face up to the fact that it's a heart. That's what I would recommend. All right, make sure you got your Mudfossil eyes on. As I told you before, they all break, almost exclusively break at that seam. And you look right down into the valves. Well, here's the valves on Psyche. Extremely easy to see. And the tendon material, very easy to see. This is gigantic. And these are tubes coming out of it. And these are the colors of the blood. And these are the valves. Now, Bennu is here. It's the same thing. It's a scruffy looking thing now. You see this big round circle here? That's one of the big valves. That's a valve. Look at this carefully. Follow me around. That's a valve. And I believe there's another one over here. It's kind of hard. It's a little scruffy. It's hard to see it. You got to put your eyes on. You got to really understand what you're looking at. Because don't forget, we could see all those big craters. They're not craters. They're valves. And they all cluster together at the top. And these things separate just like that. That's not unnatural. I mean, it is natural, let me put it that way, to find them separated like this. You see this curve? That's one of these huge ones. That might be something there. That's another one right there. And that's cuddled up to this one right here. Precisely what you see in these hearts. Now the other, Bennu has a lot of scruff around it, but it's very large. It's a third of a mile across. Bennu is. Psyche, though, is 144, 150-ish miles across. 150. And it's a heart. Now, where does that put us in the universe? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I have to now put a lot of, not necessarily full belief in the ancient texts and the myths and so forth, but I don't discount them anymore, not a single one of them. Well, some of them I do. But Apollodorus, Hesiod, Ovid, and of course Jesus Christ, who said the earth is a corpse and earth is a body. Jesus Christ said that. And I discovered that is a fact. I cannot disagree with either of those statements whatsoever. You know, not only that, he also said when you find out the reality of truth, you're going to be disturbed, and then you're going to marvel, and then you're really going to be ahead of the line for good stuff, it sounds like to me. You need to find truth before you're allowed to go on, I would think. I would think that that's an absolute requirement for allow you to continue your journey forward in eternity. You know, I think I'm going to leave it on this, but I'm going to do a video on some of the Gnostic texts, the Nag Hammadi texts specifically, which were hidden and buried 2,000 years ago, when they were trying to purge the knowledge of what Jesus said. And if you take the Gospel of Thomas, these were all the sayings that Jesus said, and he wrote them down. Thomas was a scribe. And he says that the world was a corpse, the world is a corpse, and the world is a body, and we come from light, and all of the things that I've just all of a sudden popped up. And I can't discount any of that stuff. Dipole electron flood theory shows that we literally are made from light, condensed light. Everything comes from light, and that's what Jesus said. He said we come from light. We are its children. We are light. And we come from the sun, basically, because he said it comes from the source of its own source. It's emitted by its own design. It's made that it's the sun. So we are children, basically, of the sun. It sounds like to me. There's a lot of thinking to do now. With all this stuff, these gigantic giants, and then there's all about Velikovsky talking about Venus hitting Mars and hitting us, and all of this stuff all folds together. And our responsibility was to take care of the Earth and keep it in good shape. And I think that's why we're here, and we just did the opposite. And I don't think it's going to end well. And the reason I say that was our job is we are the only ones on Earth, humans, that can change things. Beavers can make dams, yes. Animals can make little habitats, yes. We can do virtually anything, and we have chosen to do things that we shouldn't have done. So I'm going to leave it at that, and hopefully we can get out of this war business and all the other things. And you know, I don't think God is happy. I don't think He's happy at all. So anyway, thank you very much. Let's get into reality. If you don't have reality, you are not going to go forward. I can't guarantee you anything, but I can tell you what. I think we're here to learn and advance. And the people that will not learn will not advance. All right? That's my opinion. I could be wrong. All right, thank you. Have a sterling day.